All right, so today we're diving deep into one of the more, well, let's be honest, kind of sneaky laws from the 48 Laws of Power. Pose as a friend, work as a spy.
Yeah, it's definitely one that gets people talking.
Definitely. But, beyond the kind of cloak and dagger vibe, I think there's a lot to learn about how this law can help us gain power, through knowledge.
Right, exactly. It's all about subtle information gathering. When we trust someone, we tend to, well, we reveal more, sometimes without even realizing it.
It's like that saying, give someone enough rope and they'll hang themselves.
Hmm.
Okay, maybe not that extreme, but
Haha, yeah, not quite. But I see what you mean.
right, we let our guard down.
Yeah.
But why? Like, what's going on there?
Well, there's a really interesting psychological aspect to trust. When we connect with someone, our brain releases oxytocin, which is this hormone linked to, bonding and social connection.
Oh, so it's like a chemical reaction almost.
Yeah, kind of. And, it creates this sense of safety and validation, which makes us way more likely to open up and share.
So it's not just about being manipulative then. It's like tapping into how our brains are wired.
Exactly. And someone good at using this law, they understand this. They know how to cultivate trust, how to be the person people confide in.
Ah, so it's more about, I don't know, strategic maneuvering rather than just straight up deception.
Yeah, think of it like chess. Every move, every question can subtly steer things in a direction you want.
Okay, I like that analogy.
Yeah.
So can you give me a real world example? How would this play out?
Okay, let's say you're at a, I don't know, a networking event and you meet someone in an industry you're interested in. Instead of just bombarding them with questions about their company, you start by finding common ground.
Right, so like build rapport, make them feel comfortable.
Yeah, exactly. As you talk, you subtly weave in questions about their work, challenges, goals, even ask about their take on industry trends.
So these seem like harmless questions, but you're actually gathering intel.
Exactly. You're learning about the company, potential weaknesses, maybe even some insider gossip, all without raising suspicion.
That's impressive. But what about actually blending in, being a fly on the wall?
Right. You want to be present and attentive, but not overbearing. It's about reading the room, adapting your behavior to the context.
Okay, so if I'm at like a formal business meeting, I'd be more reserved, but at a casual party, I could be more relaxed.
Precisely. The key is to make people feel comfortable, like they can just be themselves without judgment. And that's where active listening really comes in.
Ah, yes. Really hearing what others are saying.
Right. And most people love to talk about themselves, their ideas, their experiences. So by showing genuine interest, you're not only gathering information, you're also building that connection.
Which makes them even more likely to open up. It's a feedback loop. But this sounds really time-consuming. Like, do I really need to analyze every single interaction?
Not really. It's more about being selective. Focus on the interactions that are strategically important, where that information could give you a real advantage.
So, prioritize your targets. But I gotta be honest, it does feel a bit, well, manipulative, doesn't it?
I think it's more about being strategic. In the pursuit of power, information is currency. And like any currency, it can be used for good or bad.
So it's not inherently unethical, it's all about how you use the knowledge.
Exactly. Which brings us to something crucial, observing patterns of behavior.
Ah, yes. It's not just what people say, it's how they say it. Their body language, their tone.
Precisely. By paying attention to those nonverbal cues, you can learn way more than just their words alone.
This is getting really interesting. So what kind of patterns should we be looking for?
Well, think about when someone says, I'm fine, but their body language says otherwise. Maybe they avoid eye contact, their voice is shaky, or they fidget.
We've all been there, right?
Yeah, and those inconsistencies can be really revealing. They might show that someone is hiding something or uncomfortable or maybe even being deceptive.
So it's not just about listening, it's about being a master observer. But how do we make sense of all these subtle cues?
That's where pattern recognition comes in. The more you observe people, the more you start to notice recurring themes in their behavior, their choices, their reactions.
Like piecing together a puzzle, the more pieces, the clearer the picture.
Yeah.
But what about those observing us? Are we all potential targets in this game of information gathering?
That's a great question, and that's something we should talk about next.
It is kind of unnerving to think that we could be giving away more than we intend just by talking to people.
Yeah, that's why it's important to be mindful, like both online and offline,
Right.
what you share.
Right.
Think about your social media posts, comments, even pictures. They all contribute to this picture of who you are, your values, your weaknesses.
Like a digital fingerprint.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And someone skilled in Law 14, they might use that to tailor their approach, to find common ground, or to exploit your weaknesses.
So it's not just about being cautious with strangers. It's also about our close friends and colleagues.
You're right. Precisely. Remember, Law 14 isn't just about sizing up rivals, it's about understanding allies, too, even those closest to you. People's motivations can shift, loyalties can change.
So even in our most trusted relationships, there's this level of strategic observation. Like we're all playing chess, trying to anticipate each other's moves.
That's a great analogy. And just like in chess, the more you understand the game, the better your chances of, well, winning.
Okay, I'm starting to feel like a secret agent.
Yeah.
But how do we actually, put this into practice?
Well, there are a few key takeaways that can help you with these social situations. First, remember that asking open-ended questions is a powerful tool.
Right, so instead of saying, did you have a good weekend?
Yeah,
You ask, what did you do this weekend?
exactly. It encourages people to, open up and reveal their thoughts and feelings. Second, learn how to blend in, be present, observe, but don't draw too much attention to yourself.
So not being the life of the party, but more of a, I don't know, a quiet observer.
Precisely. The goal is to make people feel at ease so they can be themselves. And that's where active listening comes back in.
Right, right.
Third, pay attention to patterns. As you observe people over time, you'll start to notice recurring themes in how they behave, their choices, reactions,
Like becoming a detective, looking for those little clues.
and finally, practice patience. Gathering valuable information takes time. Don't rush to conclusions or make snap judgments. Just let things unfold naturally.
So it's about being strategic, observant, and patient. It's a long game, not a quick fix.
Absolutely. But the rewards, well, they can be worth it. By developing these skills, you're not only gaining knowledge, but you're becoming a better observer of human nature.
Almost like you're saying we can use this law to become more self-aware, like understand our own strengths and weaknesses.
That's a great point. By understanding how others see us, we become more conscious of the signals we're putting out.
And that can help us become better communicators, negotiators, more influential people.
Exactly. Knowledge is power, but self-knowledge, that might be the most powerful of all.
This has been so insightful. I feel like I have a whole new set of tools for dealing with, people and situations.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. But there's one more crucial thing about Law 14 we need to talk about, and that's, well, the ethical implications.
Right, of course. We can't just go around using this to manipulate and take advantage of people.
Exactly. It's about responsibility. The goal is not to become a master manipulator, but to understand power and use that knowledge to your advantage, but ethically.
So finding that balance between being strategic and being ethical, how do we make sure we don't cross that line?
Well, that's where self-awareness comes in. You got to ask yourself, what are my intentions? Am I using this to hurt others or to get an unfair advantage?
Sounds like a constant process of checking in with yourself, making sure you're not letting your ego take over.
Exactly. And remember, while you're observing others, they might be observing you too. It goes both ways.
Wow, that's trippy. Like we're all part of this big web of observation and influence.
Exactly. So the big question is, how do we protect ourselves from being, unknowingly exploited?
That's a great question. Any techniques we can use to keep our own information safe and avoid becoming a victim of this law. So how do we protect ourselves? How do we not get played?
Well, the first thing is just being aware. Just like you're watching others, they might be watching you too. Think about your social media, what you say, even your body language. Are you accidentally revealing stuff that could be used against you?
Yeah, that makes sense. So being more careful with our own information, not paranoid, but aware.
Exactly. It's about finding a balance between being open and being discreet. Be yourself, but also protect your privacy and your interests.
Right. Right. It's like we're all in this chess game, trying to anticipate each other's moves, but also protect our own king, I guess.
Great analogy. And remember those key things we talked about.
Yeah.
Open-ended questions, blending in, observing patterns, being patient. Those are your tools in this game.
Yeah, they help us gather information, but also make us less vulnerable to being manipulated ourselves.
Exactly. By being good observers, we can kind of spot when others are trying to use these tactics on us.
Like a built-in, was it a lie detector or something?
Haha, well, not quite. But you get the idea. But even with all that, we might still miss things, right?
Yeah, of course.
No one's perfect, and some people are just really good at this. But just by being aware of how this all works, you're already ahead of most people.
Okay, that's reassuring. But, this whole pose as a friend, work as a spy thing still feels a bit morally gray.
hmm
How do we balance being strategic with actually having genuine connections?
That's a great question. And it really comes down to finding that balance between being strategic and being authentic.
Right,
You don't want to become some kind of, cold-hearted manipulator.
right.
The goal is to understand people and use that to navigate all these, power dynamics in a way that benefits everyone involved.
So not about exploiting others, but more about empowering ourselves and creating better relationships.
Exactly. Using this knowledge to become better communicators, more empathetic listeners, and more influential people overall.
This deep dive has been so eye-opening. I feel like I have a whole new understanding of, uh, I don't know, people and power and how it all works.
I'm really glad to hear that. And remember, next time you're in a situation where you need to get information or influence someone, think about Law 14. Listen carefully, observe, and let those secrets guide you.
And don't forget to be mindful of what we're putting out there ourselves,
Mhm.
right? You never know who's watching. Well, until next time, everyone, stay curious, stay strategic, and remember, information is power.